I've always loved the quote from Antonio Machado that says, "Travelers, there is no path. Paths are made by walking. Movement is the only way." Every Olympic athlete can tell you that they chose to move while others stopped. They chose to push on while others relaxed. They participated in the path unveiling itself before them one step at a time. And when they found themselves going to a place where there was a dead end, they changed courses or direction. Many of them are trained by coaches who were the best of their time in their own way. But yet coaches as well as athletes know that what has worked in the past will be different in the path ahead. So they find innovating ways in which they can grow stronger and faster and persevere as they look at that great competition that stands before them. For golfers drive the ball further. Swimmers put lower times up on the board, and gymnasts do more technical maneuvers than just 10 years ago. And now they're on this path that they stand before the world stage, and they are compared against other people who are the best of the best in their area standing beside them. And we all agree, it's very hard work. And I imagine that part of the struggle is that hard work is all the sacrifice that they give up. Sometimes children have to move from their town to the one next door or to another state or even abroad to find the best coaches to train with. But it's that fire that lives inside of them, that fire that continues to come out, and that special gift in which mountains are moved so that they can compete at the level they do. Finances and time and energy is all sacrificed. And I imagine that this causes great divisions, hurt, and even damage among family members as you think of one sibling being compared to the other in the amount of tension that is placed on one. And yet we watch and we celebrate the work of all that labor. We celebrate those fruits as they stand before us in Brazil. And I have never heard an athlete say, "We regret all the hard work that we put into it." Travelers, there is no path. Jesus told us last week to get ready for the unexpected. And Jesus tells us today that the unexpected is coming with a fire that is burning strong. The fire that will require a sacrifice of everyone involved in his life. He tells the disciples to get ready for hardships and divisions. And it's not that we're ever afraid as humans of the hard work. What we are afraid of is the unknown course that takes us forward. For our human nature wants us to be able to predict what the divisions will be, what the effect will take place on us individually and as communities of following Christ down those paths. And so Jesus turns to the crowds today and tells them not to waste their time and energy on predictions, but to keep walking forward in the faith. Every morning I wake up early, and it's almost always dark except for a month or so in the year to go for my walk. And the first thing I do when I roll out of bed is I take my iPhone out and open up the Weather Channel app to see if the sky is clear, to see if it's going to be compatible for what I want to do on that path I'm about to go take. You know, it has these little symbols that tell you whether it's clear or whether it's cloudy or whether it's raining. But I can attest for you that many times, especially the one this past Tuesday, when it said clear and the skies opened up and I got drenched. Okay weather equals a walk. Jesus reminds us that we want to be in control. And we love to talk about the weather because it's easy to talk about. We love to predict the weather because it's easy to talk about. And Jesus says, I can promise you this. As you follow me in your life, you will be unpleasantly surprised at times. So travelers, the paths are made by walking. My brothers and sisters, this week I celebrate my 3-year anniversary with you as your rector. And one thing is certain, there has been constant movement on our path that we have walked together. And in reflecting of today's lesson, I sense that there is a faithfulness of this path that we have followed because we have experienced divisions and uncomfortableness that we might not have experienced before on this journey. And yet we're also experiencing the fruits of this vine that is growing constantly here at All Saints Church, as if the toil needed to be tilled a little bit more, or in some places where the soil has to be burned before new life will come up out of it in its growth. But we know, as Jesus tells us today in this uncomfortable lesson, that the only thing we can expect is the unexpected. And that he warns his disciples that there will be people who will leave your side, even family, folks who will dig in their heels to keep the ship on a same course, but that the movement is always ahead. And when a path hits a dead end, the movement has stopped. Jesus has always taken his disciples to the window and saying, out there, go, walk by faith, knowing that you will be wounded along the way, because like the weather, it's unpredictable of how we interact with each other. I had dinner with a colleague, a friend who's now serving in Western North Carolina, and we talked about our mourning for churches that have found themselves at a dead end, that found themselves stuck. And we think about that sense of the cross, where the authorities wanted very much so that the cross would become a stopping place of Jesus. All of that momentum would come to a close, and that if they could just kill him fast enough, this new message, this new path, would all go away and return back to normal. And I think because of that, that Jesus was okay that right as he was coming to his death, his earthly death, the clouds rolled in of darkness with threatening of rain, because he knew that the sun was going to shine again. The days following his resurrection, there will be a new light coming into the world, and Jesus was glad that they would see that difference between the darkness and the light. And it would be that light that would not only make all of these lessons that his disciples have been listening to him as they have walked this journey with him these couple of years, but it would be that light that would give them the motivation and the encouragement and the power to follow their great trainer as they go off on their own and to share the gifts that God has given them, so that the darkness completely fades away and the light overtakes the world. As Jesus physically exits their life, they receive new life within themselves, as if the ground had been tilled and maybe even burned, so that that growth could come from within them. You think about what it feels like to be a disciple for Jesus and the hardships that they went through. Many of them would eventually be killed themselves. But to even think in this day and time of the hardships of our Olympians that we cheer on, when they get to that moment before the race or the competition even begins, and they hear the roar of the crowd cheering for them, and they feel the connection of the crowd cheering for them back at home, as we're all so much connected these days. And even though they stand alone to do their competition, they stand with many. And it's in that mist of competition that they are engulfed with everyone who is sharing in the fruits of all that hard work that had taken place together to get them to that very time. Paul's letter to the Hebrews today echoes that Jesus is always telling us how we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. But that means that we have to put aside that weight and sin that we cling to so closely, so that we can run with perseverance the race that is set before us, always looking to Jesus as the pioneer. For Jesus is telling his disciples, this path will be different than you've ever known. And as we heard today, this path will be different than you have ever wanted. With faith, disciples follow Christ, then and now. And it calls us to look at ourselves and to say, what might we be clinging to that we need to let go of so we can move, so that we can travel in this amazing faith that will help us to trust in Jesus in every step along the way and not worry about whether we can predict what the weather will do. Amen.